Welcome to Chapter 3, Entrepreneurship and Starting a Small Business. After reading this chapter, you should be able to explain the traits of a successful entrepreneur, describe the alternatives to starting a business from scratch, discuss the legal forms of business ownership, as well as the advantages and disadvantages of each, describe the 5 main areas of focus when starting a small business, and explain why businesses fail and how they succeed. Before we move on, though, it's important to keep in mind the common theme throughout this semester is that the biggest concern of business is, or should be, its relationships. Each chapter this semester is a lesson on how businesses approach their relationships, value their relationships, or how they manage their relationships. We've talked about the impact on the business environment from the business and the impact from the business environment on the business, as well as the impact on and from economics. It's important as we're looking at these relationships not to ignore the business side of the relationships, the you factor. A lot of people believe that to be an entrepreneur, you must be born that way. In reality, anybody can start a business or utilize the characteristics of an entrepreneur in order to be more successful in anything they do. So let's start with taking a look exactly what an entrepreneur is. An entrepreneur is somebody that is willing to accept the risk of starting and running a business. It's estimated that 40% of the people between the ages of 8 and 21 want to start their own business someday. For example, the first business I started was a concessions business while I was in middle school, that it wasn't a desire to start a business, but just an opportunity that arose that I was able to take advantage of to sell everything from candy, gum, soda, chips out of my locker in middle school. Entrepreneurs help shape the American economy. Some of the biggest, most famous ones are James Cash Penney, J.C. Penney, Amazon, which got its financial start from investments by friends and family of the founder. And for example, the founder's parents personally invested $300,000 of their personal retirement savings. And today, all of the founder's initial investors, including his parents, are billionaires. There's also Under Armour. It's started by a University of Maryland football player that recognized an opportunity that he could solve a problem that existed, dealing with creating a shirt that could wick the perspiration away from his skin. So there are many more examples. Hundreds of people start businesses, new businesses in the U.S. every day. And there are many more who aspire to. And that raises the question, what exactly does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? The stories of most entrepreneurs are remarkably similar. There are certain accepted general principles, general qualities that are present in most successful entrepreneurs. They're self-directed. By self-directed, it means you should be thoroughly comfortable with your business and thoroughly self-disciplined. Since you're the one who started your own business, you will be responsible for your own success or your own failure. They're self-nurturing. They believe in their idea even when no one else did, and they're able to replenish their own enthusiasm. They're action-oriented. Just having an idea is not enough. They realize that the most important thing is a burning desire to realize, actualize, and build their dream into reality. They're energetic. It's their business, it's their idea, it's their desire, so they realize that they must be emotionally, mentally, and physically able to work long, hard hours. They're tolerant of uncertainty. Successful entrepreneurs don't just take on calculated risk. They must be able to take on some risk that they have no idea about what's going to happen. They also have a drive to succeed. They cannot prosper by themselves, so they must be backed by committed people. The drive to succeed encourages other people to adopt and stand back and back up their ideas. They also have a degree of perseverance. They persevere despite the adversity, despite the roadblocks that are in their paths. In some cases, it takes many tries to get a business going. You must be able to effectively manage these roadblocks and these setbacks. So it's important to know that most entrepreneurs don't get the ideas for their products and services from some flash of inspiration. The source of inspiration is more like a flashlight. Imagine a search party walking around in the dark, shining flashlights, looking around, asking questions, and then looking some more. Similar to how one of the exercises the class goes through is identifying problems or issues or items that are missing from the market, a problem that they might be able to solve with a new product. So why do people start a business? It might be because of an opportunity. The opportunity to share the American dream has a tremendous allure. Many people, including those new to this country, may not have the skills necessary to work in today's complex organizations. But one thing they do have is the initiative and drive to work the long hours demanded by entrepreneurship. Others find that starting their own businesses offers them more opportunity than working for others. For some, it's the idea of profit. Profit is another important reason to become an entrepreneur. They want to make sure there is some sort of reward for the risk they're going to take on. Independence. Many entrepreneurs simply do not enjoy working for somebody else. Many lawyers, for example, don't like the stress and demands of big law firms and prefer the satisfaction of starting their own businesses. One reason they might start a business is for the challenge. Some people believe that entrepreneurs are excitement junkies who flourish on taking risks. Some others contend that entrepreneurs take moderate, calculated risks, not gambles. In general, entrepreneurs seek achievement more than power. So there's the achievement of accomplishing the challenge, but not necessarily the power that comes from accomplishing the challenge. Others prefer to start a business from flexibility. For example, you might have people who work out of their home and plan their work schedule around their time with the family. Working for yourself, for your business, allows you the opportunity to do that. There's also the belief that people start a business in order to make a difference. Many individuals get into business wanting to make a difference in the world around them. So next we're going to take a look at what are the options for starting a business. How do you start or get into a business? If your family already owns and operates one, you may decide to learn the business by working for it and then purchase it when your family members are ready to retire. Otherwise, there are three alternatives: starting a business from scratch, buying an ongoing business, and buying a franchise. So the first one, starting a business from scratch, buy an existing business, or buy a franchise. Those are the three options. To start a business from scratch gives you the opportunity to be your own boss. You can operate the business any way you wish, and you get to make all the decisions. Some of the disadvantages are that there are more cost and risk involved since there is no proven way of doing things. The disadvantage is also if you are going up against competition that is established and set in the market. And one of the other disadvantages is it can be lonely. There is some advice for people that are starting a business from scratch. For example, when I opened my business in 2005, it was important that I would find a mentor, somebody that's an advisor experienced in a particular job or type of business who acts as a guide for someone entering the field. It's also important to do your research. While it may not seem to be the most interesting activity, conducting background research about the industry, market needs, financing, licenses, taxes, and insurance is absolutely a necessity. Doing homework in the beginning will save you a lot of grief later on. For example, I recently spoke with a young individual who had a desire and a dream to make a certain type of banjo that they stopped making them back around the 1920s. And his idea was to manufacture the banjos and then sell them to the public. The first thing I advised him to do was to do the research, to find out exactly what sort of market demand there is for this particular type of banjo, what the costs are going to be as far as how much it's going to take him in time and resources to make the product, and then how much he's going to need to sell it in order to at least break even. It's important also to know the industry. There are many opportunities in many industries, and it can all be overwhelming. Pick an industry you have knowledge about and interest in. Otherwise, you may end up spending most of your time just learning the basics. It's always important to remember the following of starting a business from scratch is to market yourself. Part of being an entrepreneur is learning how to make others believe in you and your ideas. You can take professional development classes, volunteer at a nonprofit organization, join industry committees, and blog about your entrepreneurial adventures to get your business's name out there. And possibly one of the biggest things you can do to get started, read. There are probably lots of books and articles about the industry you're interested in. Reading about the experiences of others may help you avoid the mistakes they've made and can help you achieve their success. So again, find mentors, do your research, know the industry, market yourself, and read. The second option of starting a business is to buy an existing business. This is where the business already has a proven track record. You can save time and resources. You can obtain training, and it can be easier to finance because there is an established track record. Some of the disadvantages are that it may be a higher cost to buy the existing business. You may not be in a preferred location that you want to be in. And there could be hidden problems with the business. For example, there's one case that's coming up in the courts right now where a business that dealt with cleaning offices, cleaning other businesses, they were bought out, they were acquired by a business, and what they did not know was that one of the employees for the business that was bought out was illegally and fraudulently eavesdropping on and recording females in restrooms of the businesses they were cleaning. So when it came to light, of course, there's a lawsuit in the process, and the business that acquired the individual may be on the hook for the illegal activities that have been going on for years and years and years. So it's important when you buy an existing business, you want to make sure that the cost isn't prohibitive, that it's not too much of a cost, that it's in a location where you're going to be able to be successful in that location, or what are the costs involved with moving to a new location, as well as what could the hidden problems be. So you need to do the homework, you need to investigate the business if you're buying an existing business to see what's going on that could cause you problems later on. There's also franchises. McDonald's, for example. They have a proven product and services. You get marketing assistance from the parent company. So from the corporate level of McDonald's, you would have marketing assistance. You could gain training from the corporate level. Operations and purchase assistance is available. And ownership is with a lower failure rate. It's because there is so much that is proven with franchises. There is a lower failure rate with a franchise than there is with a scratch business. Disadvantages are there's a high startup cost. Of the options available, this is probably the one that has usually the highest startup cost. You have to share the profits. You're giving part of the profits to the parent companies, to the franchisor. If there's negative publicity, then that comes down and that could impact your franchise location as well. So for example, if McDonald's is under attack in the media for not paying their employees high enough wages, it could negatively impact the business that your location does, regardless of how much money you are actually paying your employees. There are also some management restrictions, and there's the opportunity for cannibalization. And cannibalization is a situation in which a new franchise takes away customers from an existing franchise nearby. So for example, if a Walmart opened up less than a mile away, it could end up taking business away from one that is already there. And when it comes to franchises, there's also the idea you need to be aware of, and that's the different types of franchises. There's a chain store, which is a business location where there are one of many stores with the same management, or a company store when a brand name is shared but the management is not central. A company store is a franchise that the franchisor owns. So the next step, taking a look at, we've looked at what it takes for an entrepreneur, what are some of the common characteristics for a successful entrepreneur. We've taken a look at why some individuals will start a business, the different ways a business can be started in terms of from scratch, as a franchise, or to buy an existing business. The next step is to take a look at some of the legal forms of business ownership. There's a sole proprietorship. A sole proprietorship is a business operated by a single individual. The advantages are it's easy to start, it's easy to stop too, and the sole proprietor gets to retain all of the profit. The disadvantage is that sole proprietor incurs a huge financial burden. It's all on them. They have limited skills. They may not be able to take care or may not be well versed in everything that they're going to be asked to take care of. There's unlimited liability. They're on the hook for everything that happens with their business. So if they have employees that do something inappropriately, they're going to be on the hook. And not just what they have invested in the business, but everything personally they have is also on the line. Sole proprietors usually have to work long hours and receive no fringe benefits. In addition to a legal form of ownership of sole proprietorship, there's also partnerships. A partnership is a legal form of business with two or more owners. Some of the advantages are that there are more financial resources. The partners are able to pool together the resources they have available. There's also a pooled knowledge, as well as a risk distribution. It's not just one individual that is taking on the entire risk, or one individual that is being asked to have all of the knowledge. They're able to share the risk, and they're able to bring together all of their individual knowledge bases. The disadvantages include you have two or more owners, you're going to have to divide the profits between two or more people. There's still an unlimited liability, even though there's more partners involved, you're still on the hook for everything. There could be conflict if the partners don't agree on how things and operations should be run. And it's difficult to get out of. You've got to have the agreement with all of the partners in order for one of the partners to get out of the agreement. So it could complicate matters. There are three different types of partnerships. There's a general partnership, a limited partnership, as well as a master limited partnership and a limited liability partnership. A general partnership is a partnership where all owners share business and financial obligations. The limited partnership is where one or more general partners and one or more limited partners. For example, a general partner is an owner with unlimited liability and is active in managing the firm, whereas a limited partner is an owner who invests money in a business but does not have any liability for losses beyond the initial investment. There's also the MLP and the LLP. The master limited partnership is something like a corporation, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's traded on the stock exchanges like a corporation, but it's taxed like a partnership and thus avoids corporate income tax. And the limited liability partnership limits the risk that losing personal assets and that partners are only liable for mistakes they or people under their supervision make, and not the mistakes of their partners and those that the partners supervise. This is often a popular choice for doctors' practices where a malpractice suit aimed at one doctor could endanger the business of other doctors in the practice. It's always important to consult an attorney and a tax advisor before initiating a partnership. There are certain issues for which you need legal advice and others that require expert knowledge of taxation. Now, before we get to the corporations, it's important to look at the advantages and disadvantages of a partnership. There are several advantages to the partnership form of business ownership. As you know, two heads are better than one. However, unlike a sole proprietorship where the owner keeps all the profits, partnership profits must be divided among the partners. So that's 1 plus, 1 minus over sole proprietorship. And then to keep along those same lines, we'll take a look at corporations. Corporations. The advantages are there's a limited liability. There's shared ownership. The idea of continuity of the business has already been decided. There are lower tax rates and there are fringe benefits. So the key advantage of incorporating a business is that it limits the owner's liability. Owners are not personally liable for the debts of other problems of the corporation beyond the money they have personally invested in it. They do not have to worry about losing personal belongings because of a business's problem. That is a huge, significant benefit. A corporation can also allow many people to share in the ownership and profits of a business without actually working there or having other commitments to it. Some of the disadvantages of a corporation involve double taxation. Double taxation occurs when the owners of a corporation are taxed twice. Once when the corporation is taxed, and then again when the dividends are taxed. And dividends are part of a firm's profits. They may be distributed to stockholders as cash payments or additional shares of stock. To incorporate a business involves a lot more paperwork. It's the most complicated of the forms of ownership because of additional regulations. And sometimes with the owner's limited focus, a little bit of myopia with their limited focus on profits. If there are owners brought in to raise the capital who do not necessarily work at the company, they may have the limited interest of getting profits and not the long-term growth and competitive advantage of the firm. So it's important to take a look at exactly the goals of the individuals that are brought into a corporation for it to be successful. And there are different types of corporations. There's an S Corp, which is taxed like a sole proprietorship, and that may involve some restrictions on size of the company. There's an LLC, which is a limited liability company. It's similar to an S Corp, but without the restrictions. There's a limited liability, and the corporation can choose their form of taxation. So looking at the different forms of ownership, so we've looked at the characteristics of an entrepreneur, why individuals may choose to start their own business, how a business might choose to be started, some of the different legal forms of ownership. So it's important to take a look next at the 5 main areas of focus when starting a small business. The first of those is going to be planning the business. Similar to your term project, there's a business plan, which many people are eager to start a small business, but have only a vague notion of what they want to do or how they're going to be successful, how they're going to raise the money they need to raise, or what funds are even going to be necessary. So a business plan is going to help them, is going to provide a roadmap of providing who they are, what they do, how they're going to be successful, and where they want to go. And it's going to include such topics as a company background, a management and leadership of the organization, financial plans and capital requirements, a market analysis with a marketing plan, as well as an analysis of production operations. The next area of focus is how the business is going to be financed. Whether it's going to be through venture capitalists or angel investors. A venture capitalist is somebody or a group of people or companies that invest money in businesses in return for a stake in them. An angel investor, on the other hand, is someone, usually a wealthy person, who invests their own funds in a business in exchange for a stake in the company. Another area of focus should be knowing your customers. Taking a look at the marketing. Again, we're talking about business's primary concern should be its relationships. And one of the most important elements of business success is knowing the market. A market consists of people with unsatisfied wants and needs, who have both the resources and the willingness to buy the product or service. So knowing and understanding the market's needs and wants is critical for any small business. There's also the area of managing the employees. As a business grows, it becomes impossible for an entrepreneur to oversee every detail of it, even if he or she is putting in 60 hours or more per week. This means that at some point, they're going to be hiring, training, and motivating employees. And we'll take a look at more of that when it comes to the chapter on human resources. One of the other areas, the last area of focus, is keeping records. Many small business owners say the most important assistance they received in starting and managing their business involved accounting. A business person who ensures that an effective accounting system is in place early on will save him or herself a lot of grief later on. There was one individual that right outside of college I had worked for as a small business. There's the business owner, and there were anywhere from 3 to 4 employees total. And it came out a few years after I'd started working for him that the individual did not maintain a check register. and as a result, he had incurred thousands of dollars of overdraft fees. So the business then had to take the time and stop with sales and service to produce bank records that the business could then keep and maintain going forward. Many businesses fail because of poor accounting practices. Many businesses fail because of a lack of planning, a lack of financing the business, or a lack of acknowledging those relationships, for example, knowing your customers or managing employees. And that brings us to the next area of why businesses fail. According to the SBA, about 33% of businesses that are started don't survive 2 years. And around 50% of new businesses don't survive 5 years. It's because of a lack of planning. They simply don't put in the planning, the thought behind the process. They're engrossed in what they want to do with their product or service, that many other aspects of their business are getting neglected, such as marketing, human resource issues, training, satisfying customer needs, and keeping good records. There's a lack of marketing. The basic essence of marketing is meeting the customer's needs. Often entrepreneurs are so overconfident that their product or service that they believe it sells itself. If you don't have an idea of what works in marketing or what the market characteristics are, you're not going to be successful as you can. It's a leading cause of business failure. There's also the lack of financial understanding. And this is possibly the fastest way a business owner can enter a downward spiral. Many business owners don't understand the actual cost of their product or service, including some fixed costs such as rent, utilities, and so on. Some don't realize how much money they lose by wasting raw materials, permitting employees to waste time on the clock and using their own time unproductively. Others don't keep careful records, and many entrepreneurs start their businesses with completely unrealistic expectations, such as if this business isn't profitable within 6 months, it's not worth the effort. And that may or may not be the case. It's also important to keep in mind here that there's a big difference between working in your business and working on your business. And a lot of times businesses fail because instead of planning, marketing, and financial understanding, instead of working on their business, they're working in their business. There's also business fails sometimes because there's a wrong business partner. A business partnership in which the partners are constantly going in different and not complementary directions can be extremely problematic. Such relationships are much more stressful and often result in conflict. There's also poor location. A bad location can result in the demise of even the best managed businesses. If it's difficult for your customers to reach you, if your business has inadequate parking, or if the neighborhood is unsafe, it can be much harder for your business to succeed. There's also the idea of competition. Entrepreneurs often underestimate the competition. There may be too many competitors in a particular market or firms that aren't competing directly when you start your business. You may jump into it once you enter the field. Failure to incorporate the competitive actions and reactions in a certain move toward a short lifespan. So you're talking about if you're not prepared for the competition and possible moves from the competition, that's a greater likelihood that your business is going to fail. So what can you do to help your business be more successful? You can have a business plan. You can seek help. That help may be needed to succeed and last much longer than those that don't. There are plenty of resources available to entrepreneurs, such as the Small Business Administration, SCORE, S-C-O-R-E, small business development centers, accountants, lawyers, economic development centers at local universities, and so forth. It's important to seek help. Focus on what can make the business fail and figure out ways to mitigate it. Find out what the problems are and make sure those problems have a lower ability to impact your business. Have a business plan. Allows you to think things through ahead of time. It's hard work. It may not be exciting, but it will force you to focus on details while keeping an eye on the big picture. For example, for your term projects, you can go to bplans.com. You can go to sba.gov. They both have some excellent resources for helps and tips on writing a business plan. It's also important to help your business succeed is to control your emotions and have realistic expectations. Understand that you're going to have to put in the work, you have to make sacrifices, and will not make millions of dollars immediately. Having realistic expectations and managing your emotions can help you develop the stamina to deal with the uncertainties that come with owning your own business. Monitor and understand the cash flow. It's important not to just think in terms of, hey, I have sales, I must be doing well. The amount of capital small business owners have to work with is usually very limited, so it's important that you must closely monitor the cash flow and not necessarily just sales. Even though it is important to focus on sales, you don't want it to be your only primary concern. And you need to watch out for changes in your business. Don't get too comfortable with your business and the business environment. You need to keep an eye on the changing trends, customer needs, competitive actions and reactions, emerging regulations, and so forth. Recognizing these changes and effectively responding to them or incorporating them can help you ensure that your business will survive and prosper. One of the big things, though, is you need to succeed by having passion and energy with your idea, with your business. So make sure you have fun. If you're passionate about your work and truly enjoy doing what you do, and you take care of the other items mentioned earlier, success is right around the corner. So in closing, something that's important to think about is how these issues, how the characteristics of an entrepreneur, why people get started in business, how they can start their business, what the forms of ownership are, why businesses fail, and how you can help them to succeed, is how do these issues apply to you as a college student. Consider student, just that title, as your current business. How is it similar and different to being an entrepreneur? What do you go through as a student that an entrepreneur who starts a business, how they similarly go through it? And how can you utilize material from this course to lessen the possibility of failure, increase the possibility of success in school and once you graduate? It's also important to keep the idea of relationships and relationship management in the back of your head the rest of the semester. How do these issues impact the business? How can the business impact these issues? And how can you, an entrepreneur, utilize the issues and concepts discussed in this chapter and other chapters to mitigate risk and have a greater probability of success? If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, touch base with me. Thank you for your time. And one final thing is the term assignment. You'll have the ability to work on this assignment piece by piece throughout the entirety of the semester. You're going to want to read the comments I give you on the individual assignments for hints and tips to produce a better term project at the end. Do your research. bplans.com and the SBA have a ton of information to help you with your plans. And if you have any questions or concerns, ask. It's what I'm here for. Again, thank you for your time.